Welcome back, travelers, to the crescendo. Legendary lore, where we're going to be talking about the crescendo.
Did you just turn to Jetmir? Is that your Jetmir impression?
Is that my Jetmir? Jetmir Bravo? Man, I'm pretty. Okay, so basically what we have is the crescendo happening. We've time skipped slightly, just a few weeks essentially, to the crescendo. Elspeth is in. She is one of the waitresses. At the same time, Xander is enjoying his time in his halls, walking through the halls of the museum, looking at everything he's collected. And he says that it was as sacred as a church to him. And that tonight on the eve of the crescendo, he was determined to walk them one final time and savor the splendor. Moments of peace were fleeting, and if his informants and assumptions are correct, there would be blood before the new year arrived. So he knew that there was going to be something happening at this crescendo, something bad was going to go down, and that he needed to be there.
The crescendo is like a New Year party?
Basically. And the cabaret intend to unveil the font there, because they're that kind of dumb.
It's like, shit.
And so
Are
he
you
says,
sure we should do this, Jetmir? Yeah, who's going to steal a font that makes unlimited Halo from us?
And it's cool because he says he goes to a statue, and it's a statue of an angel holding a baby, and he says, "This is one of my favorites. Every time I look at it, I think of my own mother." And he says that, but he can't even remember who she was, which is kind of sad because she was part of the past with the Phyrexians. And Anholo says it's beautiful, and he tells them, if we're going to make the crescendo on time, we should begin preparing for our departure. And he's just looking at the statue. And he's thinking about, has there ever actually been peace? And he goes, has there ever been peace in his life? Not just in New Capenna, but in general. And he realized that he's going soft in his old age. And so he goes, you should go to the crescendo and check on Elspeth in my stead. And in the latest thing, there has been no word on the font yet, but he knew that they would find out and that Elspeth would be there and that she would deal with it, and it was going to be good for the maestros, right? And he says that as soon as the job is done, as soon as she finds out what the font is, the archives are hers. And he tells Anhelo that, and Anhelo's confused. He's like, "Are you not attending?" "Not this year." And he's like, "But what about the font?" He goes, "I should like to stay here."
So Xander's like one of the most honorable crime bosses in the world.
Yeah, basically. He is at his core royalty, because he was like one of the rich classes back when old Capenna was still a thing. So as far as like the bosses themselves, Xander really is just there for the art, at least in his old age. When he was younger, he was a bloodthirsty assassin that would kill whoever he needed to get to the top. But at this point, he's just old and he wants to rest. And so he says, "Xander, what's wrong?" And Anhelo puts his hand on Xander's elbow, which is obviously not something he would normally do. He'd be keeping a distance. He goes, "But you're not yourself tonight." And Xander just pats his hand. "You fret too much. You will serve me best by going in my stead to the crescendo. We wouldn't want the cabaret to mistaking my absence for a maestro slight." He goes, "Well, I'm not the leader of the maestro. Of course they're going to see it as a someday soon you will be." He's like, "What?" He goes, "Just go. We'll discuss more on these matters after the new year." And so basically he hadn't actually planned so much for Anhelo to be the leader of the maestros, like officially, but he knew that it would be Anhelo. "Tonight, go and enjoy yourself and report back on any strange happenings. That's an order." And there's just this moment where Angelo's super worried because he feels like this is the last moment he's going to actually see Xander. And Xander's just happy to see him go. And as he leaves, he says he stared back at the statue as he waited. Would he meet his mother again once he had departed this long occupied and aching mortal coil? Was there even enough soul left in this old vampire demon for there to be an after for him? Movement ended his musings. Have you finally come to kill me, adversary? cut straight back to Elspeth at the party. Yes. And so after she had done all the little tasks that were basically the same kind of things Xander had them do, she is working on the the floor of the crescendo. And there's all the fancy stuff happening, and she's noticing that Giada is feeling particularly like she looks worried about something, and Kit is basically like friends with Elspeth, Kit Canto. And she's like, well, what did you think? What did you think of the thing? She goes, it was lovely. She goes, that's not a critique at all. And so basically it keeps going, and Ginny asks Elspeth, can you watch Giada for me for a moment? And she's like, oh, okay, sure. And she's like, you're such a doll. And she squeezes her shoulder and she walks off, and she's like, oh, blah, 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 party time. And Elspeth is just kind of there with a tray. You want one? And Giada's saying, if I eat anything, I'm going to be sick. She said, are you not feeling well? She goes, I'm nervous because this performance means so much to Ginny, the cabaret, everyone. And Elspeth's like, what kind of performance are you doing? Like, why is this so important? This performance from you, Giada, some random nobody who's definitely not something important. And there's just this apprehension in Elspeth's stomach that something is wrong. And it's at this point that they take Giada out onto the stage, and she breathes in, and she touches a bottle with her hands, and there's this huge explosion of light, and everyone's freaking out because the bottle is full of Halo. And there's these golden bubbles rising from a cerulean bottom to a rosy top. And it's this realization that Giada is the font of hope, some might say. She doesn't know why she can create Halo, because only angels can create Halo, apparently. But now we have this, the font itself. And Ginny's like, yes, this is the font. No tricks, no games. We have made the Halo from nothing. And you're the first to witness it. And everybody's like freaking out and super excited and like, I want more Halo. And it's at this point that Elspeth's dread kind of comes to fruition. The new era will come at the cost of Giada's life. Now, I did skip over a little bit of things where we see a little bit of who Giada is and a bit of her ideas. I feel like they didn't really give her enough time to show that off.
Considering she's the font.
Yeah, like they was like, she's a sad girl, she's got something weird going on, she's the font, now she's important. If they had made shown a little bit more early on, I feel like Elspeth's connections with her would make more sense. Anyways,
as opposed to now, it's just like justice.
Justice.
What? So I have to save your life. You don't know me. I know justice.
So the next thing he sees next thing we see is back at the museum, and there's these shadows around the man approaching Xander, like they're actually shadows on his body, forming a pinstripe suit. Yeah, because that's awesome. I love that. I love the idea that he is just wearing a zoot suit made of shadows.
He wasn't wearing clothes in any of his other iterations, so it's an upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. So what he sees around him are former maestros. And they're just there with weapons. And then, obviously, these are people that are going to kill him. The first of his former assassins charges at him. Xander, being Xander, takes him out without any problem. The next one goes. And what's cool is this moment right here. It says that he shifts his weight and steel rings out against steel as he deflects the assassin's dagger. The other vampire's eyes widen with shock. I gave you that dagger. Don't think I gave you a tool I didn't know how to best. And so he just twists his wrist, disengages the blade, and smacks the guy in the neck with the cane and kills him. It's like, oh. And so another guy comes at him, and another, and every time he's just doing things, and he's like using his cane, and one of the assassins get past the cane, and so he just slides out a dagger and stabs the guy again, and it says a spray of ash goes across the room. So like I guess vampire blood is made of ash on this plane.
Okay.
And so he starts basically strategically retreating into the museum, which essentially is a maze that he knows every route for. And so as he's going through everything, he knows where people might be hiding. He knows how to get the best jump on everyone. And he gets all the way through it, and he gets to the balcony. And he says it was meant to be a small sculpture garden. It would appear to take in the splendor of the skyline among some pieces from the museum's collection. And he says how he loved this view. And then he hears wings. Did you really think you could escape me? To a balcony? Hardly. I thought without your hired help we might have a fair fight. I don't play fair. And so Xander, obviously, he doesn't either. He lunges without warning, and the adversary deflects the sword with his bare hands. And Xander dodges, essentially, disengages underneath the wrist, and he twists to bring the point up right into the soft spot underneath the adversary's jaw. But of course, the adversary is a demon planeswalker, enhanced by Halo, and as it says, perhaps enhanced even by an evil greater than Xander could ever imagine. Adversary points his finger, and with a bang of magic, kills Xander. And that's the artwork for Murder, which is so awesome, and yet so dumb again that they block out Nixilis' appearance to make it seem as though we don't know who he is at this point.
Like, what's that demonic planeswalking looking hand?
Yeah. So the adversary shoots Xander and kills him. So at the same time all this is happening, you have everyone freaking out because of how crazy this font revelation is. And then a bunch of the people there suddenly take out weapons. Because every family had some of Nixilis' people in it. And they're here to steal the halo. They're here to steal the font. And so Ginny is looking around for Jetmir. And Elspeth is protecting Jada. And everyone is freaking out. And it's absolute chaos. And I'll leave everything that happens there for anyone that wants to actually look through it. But basically,
you're frozen.
Pulling Jada with her. And they're leaving. And Ginny's like, hold up. What are you doing? And they say that, looks like we have two escapees, one of the guards. And then the guards are like, well, the adversary told us no one is making it out if they're alive, so sorry. So basically, like this entire thing, everyone that is in strategic locations belongs to the adversary. And he set it up so that everyone at the crescendo will die because all the heads are there. They're all supposed to be there. All the top people are supposed to be there. Xander, of course, wasn't because he knew that Nixilis was coming for him. And Elspeth, of course, knocks out all those people. And before she can actually defeat those two guards, there's this flash of green. And what looks like horses and wolves and deer suddenly show up and thrash the guards and kill them. Because obviously Vivian's here. Because we forgot that Vivian even existed. And Elspeth's like, Vivian can be trusted. She's an ally. And so now you have the three of them. Jada, Elspeth, and Vivian. And the three of them are running through the city trying to get away. But then they run into Ginny. And she's like, oh, thank goodness, Elspeth. You kept Jada safe. And Elspeth's like, yes, I did. And then Dread begins to fill Elspeth again. And she's like, okay, come on. We have a secret passage out through the theater. Bring Jada. And Elspeth is like, okay, yeah, Ginny was with us and we were working with Ginny, but Ginny is still Ginny from the block and we can't quite trust her.
No, I don't think I will.
Yeah, pretty much. And so she says, Elspeth just tells her, we're going somewhere safe. We'll return when things are quiet. And she's like, we are somewhere safe. And obviously, Ginny is still a mob boss. She's Jetmir's right hand. She is not going to just let that go. She may be like, ha 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 ha, but she's not. She's a mobster through and through. And so she says, look, it's better if we split up. And Ginny's like, no, you give me Jada right now. And Elspeth just has a knife. And before Elspeth can make up her mind, fight or flight, a green arrow arcs overhead, and a wolf is not what comes out of it. Instead, out of green viridian fire, a giant dragon stretches two mighty wings and blocks the way. And Vivian's like, let's go. Okay, let's go. And so they go. Meanwhile, we have Nixilis. And he's looking down. Not so smug now, are you? And he's looking down, dusting the ash off his hands. And he looks, it says the vampire is hardly recognizable after the fall, especially after Nixilis vented some of his frustrations at the vampire's frustrating tenacity. So basically, Nixilis brutalized Xander's body after it fell from the balcony.
That sounds like him.
Yeah. And so one of his goons basically says, hey, boss, we have word from the crescendo. Everyone was in place, just as you ordered. We took control of the situation, but the font escaped. And so he just grabs the man by the throat, hoists him into the air, and then swings him like a rag doll and says, tell me, how did the font escape if everyone was where they should be? And then it says, well, there was somebody that we didn't account for. And so he knows, Nixilis knows, that if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And so it says that Jetmir escaped but was gravely wounded. The brokers and Obscura have crawled into their holes and shadows, and the fighting is hot in the Chaldea. So, Nixilis' whole deal, Jetmir is most likely dead. The fighting is still happening in Chaldea, but the Chaldea has the strongest people. The brokers and Obscura are in hiding. And Xander's been killed. Everything is chaos. Everything is terrible. And so, basically what follows is we get to see them running through the sewers, through the streets, through everything, trying to get away, and they trust no one. And it's pretty good. It's a pretty good setup. But as they're going, Elspeth gets to the museum. And she goes into, she knows what's happening with, everything is going terrible. She knows she needs a better weapon. She also knows she did her job. She found out what the font was. So now she has access to everything. And so she's going through Xander's collection of artifacts. And she's looking for things. She's like daggers, whips, swords. And he says, she hears some of the maestros talking. You don't think it was really the new recruit, do you? The one Xander seemed to take a shining to? And they're like, it looked like her. And he says, well, the adversary has deemed her as target number one, and the Cabaret says she's out too. Doesn't matter if she's the one who took the font or not. She's got nowhere to turn. She'll be dead soon enough. And so now she knows that they're looking for her specifically. And so she picks up a sword. And she looks at the sword, and it's light. It's pretty light for what it is. And she runs her hand over the hill. She wonders if it's one of the weapons that Xander had said would be really good. But she just picks it up on instinct, and she runs away with the rest of everybody else. That is what this story ends like. We have one episode left to go through the finale. It's admittedly rushed, but we're going to see how it pans out and what it means for us.
That's amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to go ahead and catch you guys next time with the finale of New Capenna. Don't miss it. I really like this Elspeth art. I wish I had a deck that used her.
Yeah, me too.
Sun's
really
Champion has just been better for my decks. Like, by the time I get an Elspeth in, the 6 mana is worth it because I get Soldiers or a board wipe.
Exactly. The versatility is way too good on that one.
Yeah. But anyway, subscribe to catch the finale and our next legendary lore. And as Ricky says, wherever you're traveling, make sure Lassie can find you.
Ooh, that's a good one.